The long-awaited FSIN federal audit has finally been released by Indigenous Services Canada. We'll bring you up to speed on some of the new details. Former APTN National Chief Phil Fontaine has been allegedly involved in a sexual assault that dates back to the 1970s. The allegations have yet to be tested in court.
I thought, man, this would be a really cool thing for kids to read about and learn about. And that sort of was the start of the idea for this novel.
And author Christy Jackson talks about the importance of Dene youth connecting with the land in her new book, Touching Grass. Tanse, good evening. I'm Krisanach Kate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Today, Indigenous Services Canada released the findings of a long-awaited forensic audit into the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations in Saskatchewan. The feds looked at 9 allegations in total. A total of $34.2 million in spending was deemed either ineligible or questionable. APTN's Rachel May brings us the latest.
Key findings included more than $23 million in questionable COVID-19 expenses, $367,000 in vehicle purchases, and $425,000 paid to a former employee. The audit also looked at 331 travel claims. It found that $265,000 out of $578,000 worth of claims could not be supported and may have contravened the FSIN's own travel policies. The report made 13 recommendations, including better documentation of purchases, Treasury Board review of severance packages, program codes for ISC funding, and new processes to calculate annual expenses for tracking and reporting purposes. APTN has reached out to the FSIN for comment. We have yet to hear back.
The Government of Canada initiated the forensic audit following questions raised by individual First Nations and community members. We have posted the entire audit to our website. You can see it at aptnnews.ca, and we will continue to cover this story as it develops. Politicians in Winnipeg are speaking out after recent acts of vandalism at the constituency office windows of 2 First Nations cabinet ministers. But despite one affected minister saying the issue should concern everybody, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew continues to stay silent. APTN Sav Jonesa brings us the latest.
Officials are saying very little following a number of attacks affecting 2 First Nation cabinet ministers in Winnipeg that have resulted in broken windows and fire damage. Firefighters have responded to 4 fires at MLA Bernadette Smith's constituency office since the beginning of August. Last weekend, MLA Nahani Fontaine's constituency office had its windows smashed in. Police are investigating but say they have nothing to share. At an unrelated event Tuesday, Fontaine addressed the issue.
The fact that Minister Smith's office has been vandalized as well as my own, I think should concern everybody.
She says no staff were harmed and they are currently working from home.
We can't say much. It is being investigated by Major Crimes. So, I have faith that Major Crimes is doing what they need to do to make sure that our offices are safe and that every constituency office is safe.
Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew has not responded to repeated requests by APTN News for comment about the vandalism. His office would not say if he will publicly address the situation. Leader of the opposition, Progressive Conservative Obi Khan, took to Facebook to denounce the actions he says create division. Khan says Manitobans have the right to demand better from their elected officials, but this is not the way. Smashing windows, harassment, or anything of that nature is never the solution. Both Smith and Fontaine are First Nations women. Both are ministers in Kinew's cabinet. In late August, Fontaine shared a video on social media addressing threats and online hate she's received while in office. One handwritten note stated Fontaine needs to be scalped, hogtied, and fired from job now. She captioned the video saying that for some politicians, quote, the violence is relentless. Essentially, we're told to just put up with the abuse. NDP Member of Parliament Leah Gazan says that doesn't cut it.
Certainly, I think that any situation of violence needs to be taken very seriously.
Gazan, who is also First Nation, says though it is a privilege to be a politician, it does come with personal safety risks. She had her own office windows smashed in Winnipeg last year, but says House of Commons gave her proper support.
I think it's time that members of parliament or members of legislative assemblies need to be provided with the supports they need to be safe. We need to ensure that any elected official is safe doing their job so that they can focus on doing that job.
Smith could not be reached for comment. We will continue to follow this story as it develops. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A heavy hitter in First Nations politics is facing a civil lawsuit that claims damages for an alleged sexual assault dating back to the 1970s. Former Assembly of First Nations National Chief Phil Fontaine, along with the Saugeen Education Authority, are named in a statement of claim that was filed in Winnipeg earlier this year. With more on the story, here's APTN's Tiara Wheatley.
The lawsuit filed on May 16th refers to events that allegedly happened more than 50 years ago. Those allegations have not been tested in court. The lawsuit claims that Fontaine was employed by SEA, the Saugeen Education Authority, in the 1970s, and while employed there, he arranged and led a school trip where the alleged sexual assault happened. The claim states the trip took place in or around 1970 when the plaintiff was still a child and alleges it was done in coordination with SEA. The plaintiff alleges Fontaine's action caused significant physical, psychological, and emotional harm, including post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and loss of enjoyment of life. Amongst the 17 allegations in the claim, paragraph 5 reads in part, the perpetrator interfered with the plaintiff's normal childhood and future relationships solely for the purpose of his own gratification. It also claims the plaintiff felt unsafe to report what happened. The claim goes on to assert that SEA was negligent in its duty to protect the Saugeen Anishinaabe high school student from abuse and is vicariously liable for Fontaine as a former employee. Key allegations against the authority are that it tried to hide the perpetrator's actions and that it knew or ought to have known that the perpetrator had the propensity to engage in such deviant behaviors. The SEA filed a statement of defense in July that denies all allegations. The authority denies Fontaine was ever an employee and is calling for the suit to be dismissed, going even further, denying having any actual, constructive, or implied knowledge of the alleged abuse. SEA is also seeking court costs. Meanwhile, Fontaine himself has not weighed in on the civil lawsuit. There is no statement of defense in the court file from him, nor has he responded to APTN National News nor any media for comment. The plaintiff is seeking general, special, punitive, and aggravated damages, as well as compensation for past and future health costs, legal costs, and other relief deemed appropriate by the court. No court dates have been set. Tiara Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Rural and remote Indigenous communities are increasingly turning to clean energy projects to meet their energy needs. Now, a new national report shows positive signs about these projects, but also warns that governments must commit to strengthening policies to ensure their success. APTN Sarah Connors has that story.
They're noisy, not to mention bad for the environment. But 70% of rural and remote communities in Canada, many of whom are Indigenous, depend on diesel generators for their energy needs.
For remote communities, having affordable, reliable power is a benchmark that honestly has not really been met in Canada yet in the same way that it has for folks on the grid.
A new report by clean energy think tank the Pembina Institute is taking a closer look at Canada's energy policy and its impact on rural and remote communities. It illustrates how Indigenous-led clean energy projects are key to slashing diesel dependency and outlines the role the federal, provincial, and territorial governments must play to ensure their success.
We are essentially looking at those policies and saying, where is that collaboration happening and where is it working the best?
The report found clean energy projects in rural and remote communities are most successful when there's strong Indigenous leadership and effective government policies. There's big benefits too: more jobs, cleaner air, and a modern, reliable energy system. The report also highlights how collaboration between Indigenous communities, governments, and utilities is vital for advancing clean energy development. Take the Saisi Dene First Nations Solar Integration Project in northern Manitoba, made possible through government support.
And so we have a true partner in our utility here in Manitoba.
The report also takes note of ongoing challenges. In the territories, high cost and small tax bases make it difficult for territorial governments to invest in renewable energy. Federal funding programs, crucial for filling capacity gaps and providing technical expertise, are not accepting additional applications, and the government has yet to announce any reinvestment in them.
And these programs that are at risk of expiring or not being reinvested in have supported over 470 clean energy projects, and many of those are delivering critical economic opportunity and secure and reliable energy to their communities.
The report calls for utilities and all levels of government to provide consistent and reliable funding, work closely with Indigenous governments, and invest in training and capacity building, highlighting that clean energy in remote and rural communities is often about more than just reducing diesel. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
The Ontario Provincial Police says there will be a heavy police presence in a First Nation on Manitoulin Island related to a missing persons case. The OPP says it will be conducting searches in the Michiging First Nation for the next 2 days. The public is asked to avoid the area of Riverside Drive and Cross Hill Road in the First Nation, and to also avoid the Bidwell Bog located northeast of the First Nation. The OPP and the UCCM Anishinaabe Police did not say which missing persons case it's related to, but did say they are following up to a related ongoing investigation. Police say there is no risk to the public safety, but they're asking people to avoid areas where police are present to ensure police work can be done safely and they can conduct a thorough investigation. Emergency response and canine units are also assisting on the ground. The investigation continues this week. A school board in Ontario has been asked to reverse its decision to not fly the Every Child Matters flag at 151 schools this September. That story when we come back. Welcome back. Every Child Matters flags have recently been the focus of controversy in Ontario. Earlier this spring, the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board made the decision to ban the flag from flying at 151 Catholic schools across the district, schools that include many Indigenous students. The school board has now been ordered to reverse its flag policy. The flags are flown every September 30th as a symbol of remembrance to honor residential school survivors and families impacted by Canada's residential school system. The Ontario Minister of Education has now directed the supervisor of the board to amend that policy and allow the survivors' flag to be raised on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The board's webpage has a land acknowledgement and recognizes the land it resides on is the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations traditional territory. Chief Claire Sue says the flag ban was a huge disappointment on all the important work that has been previously done.
You know, every school board member needs to listen to their moral compass, I think, their own heart, like we have to, right? We live there most of the time, you know, rather than by political correctness or, you know, what they're, to avoid their own controversies about it. So anyway, all that to say, it's disappointing, but I'm glad to hear the flags going up. And it's really about the relationship with the treaty holder. That's how I see it.
The North Slave Metis Alliance recently held their first gathering for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. APTN video journalist Bruce Dela Cruz has more from the North.
Sharing food together is one of the oldest and most
North Slave Métis Alliance members in Yellowknife gathered together for their first ever National Day for Truth and Reconciliation community gathering.
This came from member involvement. I think it's only been a stat holiday the last few years, but I think it's just a great opportunity for us to come together and you know, support our elders, support our members.
Alan Harmon Jr. is the vice president of the North Slave Métis Alliance and is a second-generation residential school survivor. He says they chose to have the gathering on September 19th to coincide with Pauli Day, which celebrates a landmark Métis victory in Ontario in the 90s.
It's nationally recognized in the Federal Court of Canada, and it's basically a template on who has Section 35 Aboriginal rights as Métis. So I think it makes sense that we do it on this day in anticipation for September 30th, just to reflect on not just truth and reconciliation for all Indigenous people, but distinctly the Métis people.
Harmon talks about what reconciliation looks like for the North Slave Métis Alliance, who trace their origins back to 18th century unions and have been a recognized nonprofit since 1996.
It means reconciling with the governments, that includes the government of the Northwest Territories and the federal government of Canada, and working together on important things that affect our communities. And working together in lockstep, so we're a fair and equitable partner at the table, because that's important for us to move forward and for our kids to have a future.
One young community member spoke up and told APTN News what he would do to help survivors of residential schools.
We should give them lots of hugs, high fives, and give them presents on Orange Shirt Day.
Jess Smart, the Lands and Culture Manager, was key in getting the gathering off the ground.
Tonight we just got together and had dinner together, and it was really nice. There wasn't any planned events or activities. It was just come, gather, meet community members that you might not know, spend time with your family.
As a non-Indigenous person, she explains how she commits to being an ally for the North Slave Métis Alliance.
Truth and reconciliation, from what I've learned from this community, means so many different things to every community. It's such a personalized thing. And for me, I'm just committed to learning and unlearning every day and keeping an open mind. And like you said, I'm not Indigenous, but I'm so grateful to feel so welcomed in by this community.
Mark Whitford, president of the North Slave Métis and a residential school survivor, summed up the night's events while looking ahead to the future.
I think we made headway. Maybe not the biggest headway, but we made headway in some very important areas, and it laid foundations of where we can now springboard to our next step. And our next step is going to result with us in a true reconciliation with Canada.
Bruce De La Cruz, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Great story, Bruce. As more children are growing up with more screen time in their life, one author decided to write a book about the importance of connecting to the land. That story when we come back. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Norman Moose of the Opipin-Napoin Cree Nation in northern Manitoba shot this spectacular sunset while fishing at Mid-Lake near Thompson, a well-known fishing spot for several species of trout. Norman says it rained there on the next day. Great shot, Norman, and thanks for thinking of us. If you have a picture you think would make a great picture of the day, send it along to share@aptn.ca. Time now to take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the East Coast, Fredericton 20, Charlottetown 15 and sunny. Cartwright 16, Nain 13. Quebec City 20 and showers, Montreal rain and 19. Rain in Toronto at 23, Sarnia 22 and sunny. Thunder Bay 23, Timmins 22. Puckatawagan 18 and partly cloudy, Thompson 16 and sunny. Dauphin 19, Gimli 19 as well. North Battleford 19, Regina 22 and sunny. Buffalo Narrows 16, Meadow Lake 17. Fort McMurray 16, Fort Chipewyan 15. Calgary 27, Medicine Hat 29. Bellacoola, showers and 5, Vancouver 13 and sunny. Sandspit 12, Prince Rupert 11 in showers. Old Crow rain there at 2, Rock River 3. Fort Simpson 17, Wati 16 and sunny. Palatuk 5 in showers, Tuktoyaktuk +1. Baker Lake 6 and sunny, Chesterfield 5. And Arctic Bay -6, Iqaluit 5 and showers. And finally for us, a local Saskatchewan author has released her second book following a debut novel that was shortlisted for a Governor General's Literary Award. Her latest story follows a young boy obsessed with video games who suddenly finds himself immersed in the natural world. APTN's Rachel May has this report.
I thought, man, this would be a really cool thing for kids to read about and learn about. And that sort of was the start of the idea for this novel.
Author Christy Jackson's second novel, Touching Grass, is now available. The book follows Tristan, a 12-year-old Dene boy who would rather be playing video games than be outside. After getting into trouble at school, his mother sends him to a culture camp to connect with his roots. Inspired by Jackson's own time at a Dene culture camp, the story shows Tristan's journey of ups and downs, new friends, and life-changing experiences.
So he's very much out of his element when he's up dealing with, meat and blood and like all of the things that are part of culture camp. And so obviously he has a difficult time dealing with these things. And so, but as he goes, he starts to really sort of embrace it.
Jackson says the novel was inspired by her own visit to a Dene culture camp through her work. Although she is Cree, she recognized a need for Dene representation in literature and worked with communities to ensure the story was told respectfully and accurately. She says representation for all cultures is vital.
And it's so very important for kids to see themselves in stories. And so I'm really happy that I'm one of many authors that are contributing to having more Indigenous voices in the book place.
Her first book, Mortified, which followed Belinda, a shy student with a string of bad luck, was shortlisted for a Governor General's Award for Young People's Literature. She says that by the time Mortified hit the shelves in May 2024, she was already getting ready to start editing Touching Grass.
This time, I actually wrote the end just before Mortified came out. So it takes a little while between when you finish the first draft and then, do all the process of editing.
Touching Grass is now available wherever books are sold. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Love to see it. And that's our evening newscast for APTN National News. We're back again for your daytime newscast. Please join us then tomorrow at noon Winnipeg time. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Extend.